If I can just say, one of the reasons that I've wrote a book called Strip Bare, and I started going out as an inspirational speaker in 2013, and I write verse and blogs for charities and causes. The main reason for that is to help others, to inspire, to give hope, and to raise awareness. My addiction actually was part of, if I say 30 years, I battled with mental health issues, and that was severe depression, which started after I left school, basically, and also anxiety. And the shopping addiction became part of that. It was embroiled with it, and it was literally triggered by low self-esteem and a lack of love for myself. I think that's what I can openly say to people.
And you thought that then buying nice clothes...
Made me feel good.
Made you feel good.
It's like an addiction, I would say, is a habit that spirals totally out of control. So, say if you talk about drinking, we all like a drink. Well, most people like a drink at the end of a busy week, so a glass of wine, but if you woke up in the morning and it's the first thing on your mind and you want a glass of wine rather than a cup of tea, then you've probably got a problem. And that's how my what's probably a nice habit, a nice leisure time for most people, mine became an addiction. So I'd actually go into a shop and I'd get this high, so the adrenaline, and it was literally, looking in the mirror, trying the clothes on, and then I would probably feel, particularly towards the end, feel physically sick at the money that I'd spent.
Well, I think a lot of people will identify with that in some way, to some degree. The addiction had to be paid for. When did you start getting into trouble, realising that you hadn't got the funds?
Because you had a good job.
I had a good job, and yes, a good job, and I actually was really good at the job as well. But I don't think I ever really believed. And, I go into this in more detail in the book, but I don't think I ever really believed that I was good enough. So, but I do think no matter how much I would have achieved, what I wore, what I bought, I would have never felt good enough because I didn't feel good enough inside.
I want to nail something here. I want to get to the core, the crux of something here. Whether it's you, whether it's people in abusive relationships, whether it's people who self-harm, I could go on to almost any condition that we talk about in this programme, and people say, it's because I had low self-esteem. Right, how do we nail this? How do we wind everything back for everybody? What have we got to do as a society without telling everybody, you're wonderful, you're marvellous, you're fantastic every day? What is the core of building people's self-esteem?
Well, I would say, in the book, what I say is we're surrounded by media, magazines, television. I'm sorry, but a lot of it is advertising what people probably think they should look like or they should be.
Perfect life. The
perfect life. When, in reality, that's not life anyway, But so people, young ones in particular, it's quite frightening to see how young ones, when you see them on Instagram, trying to look absolutely perfect with the...
So we said you were holding down a very good job, you had your own house. So when did it become such a problem you had to give up your house?
It became a problem when I lost absolutely everything. In 2008, I sold up. I sold my house because I had my own house, and I moved into rented accommodation.
And was that to clear your debt?
And that was to consolidate. I realised then I had a massive problem and I had to sort it out. Unfortunately for myself, I went 2 years and I was managing to survive. I could have gone bankrupt, but I chose not to because I wanted to I felt I should pay.
Face up.
Face up
so
to
this
it.
is this individual voluntary arrangement where you have to pay your...
But I wouldn't advise anybody to do that now because there are so many charities out there that would do it.
How come, what's the trick? How come now when you see something in a shop, when you see something online, when you see a shopping channel that you don't reach for your credit card? What prevents you?
Well, because, as I say, for 2 years I cut up the credit cards and I was on an IVA. And then I was made redundant. And So the sad thing for me there was that was in 2010. I actually then I survived for about a year because I was still covering it up. I was ashamed.
You hadn't told your family or
didn't
anybody?
and it was easy for me to cover up because I'm so outgoing. I mean, you see,
and you're not married, so
and I'm not married, so I lived on my own. So I covered it up, and it was easy to do that. I'm very good at covering things up.
You eventually told your mum. Why did you tell your mum?
Because the night before, I actually tried to commit suicide. It got that bad. It was 2011, the night before Prince William married Kate, and it was a bank holiday the next day, and it actually, when I talk about it, it's still quite raw for me, even though it's that long ago.
What was your mum's reaction? Because she didn't know.
She was absolutely wonderful about it. She was so understanding, and you know, she's been my brick ever since, really. In fact, we've become, how can I put it, we're best friends.
Well, I thought
now.
you were sisters. Saw you out there,
I think she actually loved that one.
I thought, who was the mother, who was the daughter here? Right. So, for anybody who's going through this that feels the temptation, no matter to what degree, what would you say to them? And they think, well, I've already spent too much, it's too late. Is it ever too late?
No, it's not too late. You need to face up to it. I was getting... this doesn't happen so much now because it's more... I think it's more controlled. But I was getting phone calls, constant, 24/7 phone calls, constantly. And I couldn't sleep.
People you owed money to.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep. They handed it over to debt collectors and, you know, they wasn't the pleasantest of people on the phone.